Welcome everyone to Draft Day Eve. I know tomorrow is like Christmas for a ton of us, whether you'd be in the college football community, the pro football community, or just the draft community in general. Lots of scouting departments for all websites across the board, all major news media outlets. We're all ready for tomorrow. TD, you are back for one of the most important shows of the year. Welcome
Man,
back. It's an honor to have you back. Take it away.
thank you so much for having me, man. It feels like it was just yesterday where we were doing like the 2022 mock draft. Like this is crazy. Like this year has flown by, but at the same time, these last few weeks feel like they've just like crawled by. Like it's so crazy. Like last year is still so fresh in my mind, and now it's all of a sudden this year's, but it's crazy. But yeah, it's been nice to have the draft like here around the corner because it distracts me and I'm sure it distracts other Ravens fans from all the craziness that's been going on this offseason. So it's been like a welcome distraction for me, and by my own mission, I haven't hit this draft as hard as I did the last few cycles. There's been a lot going on. Can't help it. But I still know a lot about this draft. I'm very excited for this draft. I'm so pumped for tomorrow. I can't believe it's already here. Oh my gosh, these next few days are going to be so crazy. It'll be so much fun. It's going to be so insane. I love the chaos that the draft brings every single year. Not just like as a Ravens fan, as a football fan as a whole. My God, I love this time of year. It's the best time for football season. Oh my gosh, I almost enjoy the draft more than I enjoy the game itself. Like it's just, I know this is a little crazy, but it's true. I love the draft so dang much. This is so much fun.
It's going to be an absolute blast coming the next 3 days.
Mhm.
And I know that all of us here at ATB, everyone has done a phenomenal job covering it, getting all the prospects together. But before we get into our mock draft and our final sets, unless one of us decides to skip in a pre-draft mock draft for tomorrow throughout the day. There's some Ravens news we got to cover.
Of
Obviously,
course.
I've done my best to cover it without you the past couple weeks,
And you've
past
done
month.
a phenomenal job, by the way. Watch every show. You do amazing.
I
Keeping this place afloat. Proud of you.
I appreciate that. Even with my very short and sloppy episodes, I do my best to give you all the best content that I can give because I enjoy doing this show
Mhm.
and just getting the content out of here. But my good sir, you take it away because obviously I want to get your thoughts. I've read your thoughts, but I want to hear you talk about them live.
Yeah, I mean, of course. Well, first of all, I just want to start off by saying our Pro Bowl quarterback is back. Tyler Huntley signs his tender. Hell yeah. Oh, thank God. Like, how many teams can boast two Pro Bowl quarterbacks on their roster? The Ravens are in an enviable position. Tyler Huntley is back. So we already have a playoff starting caliber quarterback on the roster, even if Lamar decides not to play. So I'm already feeling great about this season. So thank God for that. Oh, gosh, what else happened? Oh, yeah, Odell Beckham Jr. to the Ravens. That one came out of left field for me. I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool. Saw how much we signed him for. I was like, holy crap. Like, my jaw dropped. I was like, holy cow, that's so much money for a team that I thought was just flat broke. And yeah, the money miffed me a little bit because, I mean, this guy hasn't really had an elite season in quite some time, but you beggars can't be choosers. He's the most proven receiver that we've signed since Steve Smith, I'd say. So I'm not gonna complain about it too much because we got our big name star receiver. Like, yeah, sure he's probably a couple years past his prime. Sure, we might be overpaying him, but yeah, it's sometimes what you got to do whenever you want some receiving help. And him coming over more than anything, it was like, oh, that's good news because there's no way in hell he's going to come to Baltimore without Lamar, right? Then in this press conference, he's like, I received no reassurances that Lamar is going to play, and it's like, okay, right. He came here to play with Tyler Huntley, our Pro Bowl quarterback, but it's been this offseason hasn't been as dramatic as I thought it would be, I guess. Uh, wasn't really expecting the Ravens to make a whole lot of moves in free agency, and they didn't. They made quite a big splash, with Odell, as I just said. But everything that I thought the Ravens would do was going to be around the draft, and that's what I was focusing on. So I think this is going to be a crazy few days for the Ravens, whether it's them trading back or trading for a player or maybe even trading up. Not expecting it, but who knows? Like I never say I hate definitive statements when it comes to the draft, and just never say never when it comes to the draft. Anything can happen, and so with the Ravens, they're a hard team to predict for. There's one of those few teams that you can never quite put your thumb on what they're going to do. So I'm excited. I'm stoked. I really have no complaints for this offseason, other than, the basic stuff. Why isn't Lamar signed? I could go on all day about that, but I feel like we've been doing that. So I'm going to save it. I'm just going to be repeating my frustrations at this point, but it's nothing I say is going to change anything. And it's not going to be anything new, but the draft is tomorrow. I'm so excited. The Ravens, they have quite a few holes that they need to fill, and they only have 5 draft picks. So I'm really excited to see how EDC can maneuver around and, maybe accumulate a little more draft capital to fill those holes, or maybe acquire some players through trade. I'm just so excited. I'm so excited. Maybe I'm getting my hopes up. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. We won't know until this weekend is over, but I'm so damn stoked for this. Oh my gosh, this is one of the most unpredictable drafts I've ever seen in a long time. Like this could go any which way. So I obviously, as you can see, I'm excited. I can't contain the excitement. I'm so ready for tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. Because I'm looking at Zeph Zerebrik's Twitter page right now, and considering the 5 picks, we're probably going to EDC is probably going to wiggle around and get some more picks, because if you look at it, the Ravens had 21 combined true unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents. The 8 that are back lists as Hill, Mullen, Seymour, Huntley, Hill, Mullen, Seymour, Huntley, Moore, Phillips, Stone, and Welsh. I'm excited about that. Obviously, I am happy about that.
That's your boy came back, man. Yeah,
my boy
happy.
did come back. He's a huge special teams contributor, a huge leader on special teams, a nice rotational plug and play linebacker. So I'm happy about that. Unfortunately, 3 have signed elsewhere. That's going to be Josh Oliver, Ben Powers, and Tristan Colon. Those 3 kind of, or at least Colon kind of shocked me a little bit with him going to the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted him to have him back. Like he's been a solid backup center, plenty of starting experience. I'm thinking maybe they're going to slot Patrick McCarry more toward the backup center role / 6 offensive lineman. Maybe that's why they felt comfortable letting Cologne walk. But yeah, that one kind of surprised me. I mean, I don't know what he signed for, but I can't imagine it was very expensive at all.
It wasn't expensive.
Yeah, it wasn't expensive. Like he has, I think, roughly 3-4 starts under his belt. So I mean, and he knows the system. But I mean, best luck to him. I want him to succeed. We've talked about him a lot on the show, oddly enough. But happy that he's getting a chance to go to New York, block for Aaron Rodgers. So I wish him all the best. Kind of sucks, but what can you do?
Now, 2 players that definitely balled out last season got their bags for these 2 other teams. Josh Oliver with the Vikings, and then Powers with the Broncos. Those were 2 free agent pickups for them that was definitely earned.
I think Ben Powers was earned. Like Ben Powers signed like a 4-year, $50 million contract. Maybe it was a little bit more than that. But yeah, we saw him play. We knew he was going to cash out. It seems like the Ravens always have these mid to late draft picks that take a while to develop, but in their 4th year they just explode and have tremendous seasons. Then they go cash out elsewhere, and you're just like, okay, well, Ben Powers is the latest person to do that. He's going to go to Denver, block for Russell Wilson, who needs more protection than he got last year. So, obviously, we're rooting for everyone. Um, I want Ben Powers to play well, live up to that contract that he got. Good for him. Josh Oliver, on the other hand, 3 year, $21 million contract. That this blew my mind. Like, he was a solid piece for our offense. Not much of a receiving threat. Definitely a great blocker, and that's what the Vikings paid him to be is blocker. They have T.J. Hawkinson. He's their receiving tight end. Josh Oliver, he's going to be their blocker. But like that, I saw that contract. My mind just like that was insane. Considering the Ravens got him a few years ago for a seventh round draft pick, I mean, I'd say the Ravens won that trade.
That
But
was a
yeah,
steal.
that was a steal for the Ravens, and now the Vikings just they clearly want some more blocking out of their tight ends. That's why they gave Josh Oliver, who turned out to be one of the better blocking tight ends in the league last year. That's why they gave him all that money to essentially be like that sixth offensive lineman. So I think that was a huge overpay for Oliver. I'm not saying Oliver is a bad player by any means or stretch of the imagination, but 21 million is a little. That's a little it's a little much for my take. But Vikings value him at that, and that's what they paid him. Good for
And
them. Good for them.
exactly. And we got some of our first comments of the evening. I want to say this is our buddy Shane, but I could be wrong. Ravens are drafting Stetson Bennett at 22 and Jaguars legend Josh Oliver. I hope this is Shane Kubis, but it doesn't exactly show our last names. But I can see them drafting Bennett there at the end, but that's another conversation that we'll get to a little bit later.
Yeah, if the Ravens trade back and miraculously get like a seventh round pick, yeah, sure. But if the Ravens have leave the weekend with five draft picks and one of them is Stetson Bennett, I'm gonna be pissed. Like it's like, come on, man. Like the guy's already older than 2/3 of the quarterbacks in the league. Like he's gonna retire in 2 years. Whatever. On paper, it makes sense, but oh man, I'm gonna be so mad if he's like our fifth round draft pick. I'm gonna be so mad.
Exactly. So, and then there are still 10 remaining unsigned free agents. Vince Beagle, Kenyon Drake, Kyle Fuller, Justin Houston, I believe it's Juwan James,
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Means, JPP, Marcus Peters, Demarcus Robinson, and Sammy Watkins. Now, I, out of all these guys who I would like to see come back, would probably be Beagle, Peters, Drake, Fuller, and Robinson, and honestly, Stephen Means. I don't want to put or say it's not that I don't want Houston or JPP. I think Stephen Means is just a little bit younger and has a little bit more in the tank.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, I'm not shocked that they're not back yet. A lot of these guys are, teams will wait and see who they get in the draft, and if they don't get who they want, they'll sign some of these veterans to shore up, these positions that they were hoping to get some draft capital for, but didn't. Out of all those names you mentioned, I really want Justin Houston back more than anyone. I mean, dude had 9.5 sacks last season. He's a veteran. Ravens don't really know exactly what they have in Owe and Ojabo. Like the potential is through the roof. It's just they're young guys. They're still developing. And of course, Tyus Bowser. He's all reliable, but it can't hurt to have some more depth there. And I do like Steven Means. I actually thought he was going to play a lot bigger role last year because he looked really well in the preseason. So I wouldn't mind Steven Means back either, but I just want a little more depth and experience at our edge position. So any one of those guys can come back. I don't see Jason Pierre-Paul coming back. I could see another team snatching him up really quick, but I think Justin Houston's been here the last couple of years. He's ingrained in the Ravens culture. A guy that I actually am shocked is still a free agent, though, is Demarcus Robinson. I thought he played really well for us to earn at least a contract by now, if not from the Ravens and from someone else. So a little shocked that he is still available, that he's still around. Um, But yeah, if he comes back to Baltimore, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happy. He's not going to cost that much, and he knows the Ravens' way of offense, and he fit in pretty well here. So I know we bashed our receivers a lot last season, but Demarcus Robinson, he tried his hardest, and so I think he fits in well here. If he were to come back after the draft, you would not hear any complaints from me.
Yeah. So some of these comments here, I'm basically agreeing with us with Shane again. I think Robinson would be a good guy to bring back in as depth, just little size as wide receiver right now. And then Houston should definitely be a guy brought back in camp, just an insurance for Ojabo. Ideally, he's ready to start.
Exactly. Just like I remember last year, we only went into the season with like what 3 healthy pass rushers, and we lost like 2 of them after week 1. You're just like, gosh, okay. So I feel like the Ravens do this a lot, where they go into the season, thin at a position, and they're just assuming that they're going to be healthy the entire year. A couple of them get hurt, and the Ravens are left scrambling for some depth. So I wouldn't mind seeing a little more depth at these extremely important positions, such as edge rusher. That's why I really want Justin Houston back. He's not going to cost a whole lot, and he knows the system. He fits in really well. I am begging for Justin Houston to come back, just to, at the very least, to give us a peace of mind for at depth at this really young edge position that we have, which like I just said, brimming with potential. I just need a little more insurance behind them, just in case something bad were to happen. And I don't think that's asking too much.
Exactly. So, with all that being said, we know that we're going to be seeing some of these guys back no matter what. It's just a matter of what the Ravens decide to do in the draft. And we'll go one step at a time. Oh, shoot. Got something caught. So, when we go to see the Ravens draft, do we see them stay at 22, or do we see them move up, or do we see them go back?
I mean, that's the big question, is like, what are the Ravens going to do at 22? Like, there's absolutely no way that they stay at 22, right? Like, surely they're going to move back. Well, it takes 2 to trade, and I think it all depends on how the board falls. Is someone going to be there that a team wants to move up for? And so, like, I think it's really funny when fans are like pounding their fists for their team to trade back. You have to trade back, but there's no guarantee that a team wants that spot anyway. So, I mean, like I said, it takes 2 to draft, or it takes 2 to trade. So I would love for the Ravens to move back, acquire a few extra draft picks. Can't say it's a guarantee. Can't even say that that's a spot that a team will really want, because I've done several mock drafts and everything, and I got to say that early 20s run there, it can get pretty dicey for some teams. It can thin out really quick. So 22 might not be an ideal spot to trade up for. But again, it all depends on how the board falls, who falls to those spots, and is that someone the Ravens want to take, or do they value some extra draft capital, a little bit more? So there's a lot of questions go into it. I much prefer the Ravens to trade down, but you never know. You never know. I see some mock drafts that have the Ravens trading up somehow. I think I'm kind of contradicting myself. I said I don't like definitive statements. I can almost guarantee the Ravens are not trading up in this draft. And if they do, it's not going to be jumping up 10, 15 spots. It's going to be maybe a spot, maybe 2, if that even happens. Don't think that happens. But EDC loves his picks. He showed that last year when he chose like half of the 4th round, when everyone thought, they're going to package some of these picks and move up in the 3rd or 2nd round, or they're going to send some offer, some future draft picks, which, looking back, I wish he would have done that. But again, who knows if teams were even calling for that. But Eric DeCosta loves his picks. I'm sure he's looking to trade out and acquire a little bit more, because I think the meat and potatoes of this draft is like in the 2nd and 3rd round. I think, you're not seeing a whole lot of elite talent in this draft, but you're finding a lot of solid role players. And I think, that late first, second, third round, that's where you're really going to find some key contributors. And so I think if the Ravens can move back and stay around that area and acquire a few more draft picks, I think they're going to be in a really good spot.
Exactly. So I'm pretty sure we're caught up with all the April news and little theories about what the Ravens could or couldn't do outside of the normal. Lamar Jackson, is he going to actually sign? Now, I don't think we actually covered that yet, but
It's hard to know like what we've covered with Lamar and what we haven't. It's just been an ongoing saga, for the last couple of years. So it's just like, have we talked about this? Have we not? I don't know.
exactly. Well, anyways, just in case we did go over it already in tonight's episode, I'm just going to go over it again real quick because I know we talked about it before we went live. The fact that Lamar posted a excited SpongeBob GIF with the star eye emojis, which could indicate either A, he's getting D Hop, or B, he is officially signing either A, his tender tag, or the extension, or all the above, with getting D Hop and signing his extension. Which do we honestly think is going to be the one of or the options here? I think he's going to be signing his tender and tag either way.
Yeah, I think he will sign his tender. I think he does play for the Ravens next year. I don't think he holds out. I do think he plays for the Ravens next year on his tender. But for that tweet, he might have just been screwing with us. I don't know. it's hard to tell. It's so hard to tell. We hang on every single little tweet from Lamar and everything he does. It's just like we decode it, we decipher it, we try to figure out what does this mean. When I don't know, I've seen players just brag about like, yeah, I just tweet sometimes just to screw with people. And I'm not saying Lamar does that or is doing that, but I mean, who
Well,
knows
it
at
made it
this
hard
point?
because Josina Anderson commented under it with the telephone contract and what was or
It's like trophy. It was a
yeah,
trophy.
trophy.
Yeah, and you're just like that's just fueling the fire. And I'm just like,
It's,
yeah, so that definitely means the Ravens traded for D Hop. Lamar signed his extension, and the league has just given us the championship for next year. Like that's what that means. I don't see how else that could be taken, honestly. So every time I say I don't care, just like I'm just ready for the season to start. What Lamar does is what Lamar does. Then he tweets something like this, and I'm just like refreshing Twitter every 3 seconds to see any more news.
that's exactly what I did earlier. And watch
Yeah,
if they announce it at 11:59 or what was it? Was it 11:50? No, it was 11:59 is when college essays and projects are due. 11:35 p.m. I think was the time he was drafted. Those 5-6 years ago, wasn't it?
2018. Yeah, 5 years ago.
So if they announce the signing at 11:35, wouldn't that be some shit?
Is that a rumor that's going around that
That
they're
is
going to announce
currently
it?
a rumor
Oh
going
my
around.
god, I hadn't heard that one. Oh my god, that would just be all-time craziness, but that's so funny. Just oh my gosh, these people love toying with everyone's emotions. It's sick, man.
Everyone.
It's so sick. I'm so
Any,
tired. I'm so tired. And like it's sad because the draft it's done after Saturday, right? So now we have to go back to this mundane existence where it's like, is Lamar signing today? Assuming he's not signed by the end of Saturday night. And you're just like, God, now we're just gotta go back to what we were doing before draft season was, hyping up. It's like, great.
exactly. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get on to the next thing. The thing that everyone has been waiting for us to do all day yesterday and the day before, our dueling mock drafts. Now, I don't know about you if you kept the standard 5 picks, but I had some fun. I accepted a few trades and got some draft capital.
See, I'm too chicken shit to do trades. Like, I just think trades are so unpredictable and everything. And it's just like, I'm just too scared to do trades. So I think the hardest part about predicting any draft is obviously, the trade, like who's going to go where. And it's just, I don't know. I'm just too chicken to do trades. If you do trades, hey, that's more power to you. I admire your confidence. I do not have that confidence, but like I said, if you did it, yeah, more power to you, my friend.
All right. Would you like to start out, or would you like to see who I picked first?
I want you. I want to see what you did. Like that's what I want to see.
Okay, let me see if I can actually get it pulled back up on where I did it. Okay, so it doesn't show me exactly who I traded with, but the first pick I traded back to pick number 24 from 22, and I took cornerback Joey Porter Jr. Now, I know that it's gone around, especially in all of his press conferences, that he doesn't hold that same kind of hatred for Baltimore that his dad does.
Yeah. Okay. My God. I don't
But
think I hated a player more than Joey Porter. So I oh my gosh, that he, he drives me insane. So having his son play for the Ravens, who I know he hates, I would love it. I would freaking love it so much.
so we're going to eventually see Joey Porter wear, in some sort of fashion, Ravens gear. And seeing all of our Steelers friends get all kinds of pissy because of it is going to be funny.
Oh
No
my
offense,
gosh.
guys, we love you, but damn, that's going to be good come game day
God.
if the team actually does this.
Yeah. Aside from the fact that Joey Porter Jr.'s dad is Joey Porter and would look hilarious in Ravens gear, I love Joey Porter, the prospect. Like, oh my
Yes,
God,
absolutely.
I drool. He's everything that the Ravens want. I am one of those people that thinks he's gonna be a top half of the draft pick. I don't think he comes close to us, but if he does, my goodness gracious, I don't think the Ravens should hesitate or even bother with trading down. But if they can trade down and still get Porter, I think that's an automatic A plus. Even if it's just trading down one spot and picking up like an extra sixth or something, doesn't matter. If they can get an extra draft pick and Joey Porter, automatic A plus. I'm loving this draft. They could draft punters the rest of the night for all I care. And this is a great draft for us.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, we know you're staying at 22. So we know that I enjoy Joey Porter Jr. the prospect because of everything he stands for and what he brings to the table. He's a hard hitting, hard nosed cornerback that can fit both that Marcus Peters ball hawk and the Marlon
Mhm.
Humphrey hard nosed. So I'm excited about that. Who did you take at number 22?
I stayed at 22. Everyone knows that I'm too chicken to do trades, but I stayed at 22, and I went with another corner. Only this time I stayed a little closer to home. I went with Maryland corner Deontay Banks. This is a guy I think he might not even be there at 22 for them either. I'm seeing him going closer to the top 10 at this point, and I don't blame teams for doing that. He has good size. He's great, just like a physical profile. He's fast, and he's just a physical corner. He's everything that the Ravens want in a corner. He's physical. He's great at press. He gets in your face. He's everything that the Ravens love in their defensive backs. And Ravens fans will love him because he grew up in Baltimore. He went to Maryland. He is a local product. So this kid, he just screams Ravens to me. So yeah, if he's there at 22, I'm going to run up and I'm going to take him because he fills a huge need for the Ravens, and he fits the profile for what the Ravens are looking for. So yeah, if he's there at 22, Banks should be the pick. I will say I would take Joey Porter over him in a heartbeat, but Joey Porter was not available in my mock. So, but Banks was. He's my pick. I go with Banks. Boom. Let's get it done. Pair him with Marlowe and just have an absolute nasty shutdown secondary.
Absolutely. Now that we got that off the table, I think the next pick was what, technically 86?
Yeah, something like that.
So I traded back again, but I got pick 95 and I took Cincinnati wide receiver Tyler Scott. This guy is going to be a solid pick coming out no matter where he goes. But on my board, he fell to us. I had to take him. This is another guy that will be well utilized the Todd Monken offense, whether it's with Lamar, whether it's with Huntley, or if they decide to draft someone later and develop them for whatever reason. But Tyler Scott is going to do well and develop well in Baltimore.
Yeah, Tyler Scott's like one of those guys who just kind of fell in this draft process, but like for no real fault of his own. Just like other prospects are rising to the top. Scott's not that big. He's like 5'9", 180, I think, roughly. But man, the guy is fast. He's a playmaker. I've been one of those guys that's been advocating for Tyler Scott for the Ravens, for the third, fourth round pick. I think he just brings this certain playmaking that the Ravens just don't have, this underneath target that they just don't really have right now. So yeah, I absolutely would love Tyler Scott. I would welcome him with open arms. Again, you trade back and still get him some like 9, 10 picks later. Boom. I'm gonna love that pick. I'm gonna love that pick. I'm gonna love the draft capital we get from trading back. I'm gonna love the player. I'm gonna love everything about that. I would love to see what Tyler Scott could do with Lamar. He's just so exciting, so exhilarating. I love him.
Absolutely. And let's hear your next pick.
So with my next pick, I went with Wake Forest wide receiver A.T. Perry. I did this because he's basically the anti Tyler Scott. He isn't as fast as Scott, even though he did like wow some people at the combine with his 40. And he's not small like Tyler Scott. He's around 6'4", and he brings that size to the Ravens receiving core that like we just don't have right now. You brought in OBJ, he's an exciting playmaker, but he's like what, around 6 feet, maybe a little under. We don't really have a receiver that's above 6'1" right now. So I think A.T. Perry brings that catch radius that everyone has been harking on to get Lamar, because apparently Lamar can't throw or something. So you need a guy who can reach everywhere. It doesn't matter what quarterback you have. It could be Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. They like big receivers who can just go up and get the ball. Perry, I think he needs to learn how to use his size a little bit more, but he's already better than Miles Boykin ever dreamt of being. Perry, he can turn into a bully. He can turn into a monster. Like, you get him the ball, he's just going to bulldoze over these guys, and he has just so much more room to just get bigger and bulk up and stuff. Maybe he loses a little speed, but when you're that big, who cares? Like, just throw up the ball, go get it, watch him come down with it. I think he brings some necessary size to a Ravens receiving core that is it's one of the smallest in the league, which, okay, fine, but we need that size.
You know who both of these guys would be better than when it comes to who's already on the team? These
Who's
guys are
that?
already better than James Prochet.
I knew you were going to say James Prochet. I knew you were going to say James Prochet. Gosh, I was a James Prochet defender for the longest time, and then last year happened. When there's just no excuse for him not to be getting more reps, and you're just like, okay, I'm done. Like, I throw in the towel. I was wrong. Whatever.
He gets the reps, but
Just did nothing with it. Nothing with
he
it.
fails with it. I
Yeah.
get it. It was the Greg Roman offense, but damn, how you gonna
Yeah.
do that bad? I almost dropped our one F-bomb of the night, but
Yeah. It's just frustrating.
anyways, moving on. I did stay at pick 124 when I was offered a few options, and with that one, I took a guy out of Texas, defensive tackle Moro Ojomo. He is a beast of a defensive tackle. and I do think he would fill in some of that depth that we do need with the departure of Calais Campbell. And yes, some people think that's a little high. Some people think that 124 would be the perfect spot range for this guy. I think he's going to bulldoze his way through or get technical with it. He can do both. That's just my personal opinion, and I believe that our guys from the Talk Texas podcast and the Talk Texas page would be very proud of this pick.
Yeah, I've seen Ojomo all over the board. I've seen him as high as like the first half of the third round. I've seen him as low as like the seventh round, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. I think this is a good spot for him. Yeah, sure, he's undersized. He's 6'2", 290. Maybe he's a little heavier than that, but I think he's around there. But I mean, this dude is he's such a powerful rusher. Like, he can get after quarterbacks. He can be a disruptor. I have been begging for a disruptor along the defensive line since basically we got rid of Halotinata. And when we traded for Calais Campbell, I was like, oh, thank God. And look what happened. Our defense just turned into an elite unit for the longest time. As long as Campbell was right there, he was leading the charge, filling the trenches, and now he's gone. And now we're really banking on guys like Travis Jones and Justin Metabuke to step up, which I think they are more than capable of doing. But adding another young guy, someone like Ojoma, who, like I just said, he's a very good bull rusher. He can get after the quarterbacks. I would not hate that at all. I would actually welcome that. I think we need more along our defensive line, and so I think this is a very solid pick, especially for a defensive line that's lacking in the depth department right now, to say the least.
Exactly. Now, I'm interested in who you took at 124.
So I took a player that might not be a popular pick, but I've been pounding my fist for it. I took Kendre Miller from TCU, the running back. And I'm sorry, I just think running back is a bigger need than most people are willing to admit to. Like J.K. Dobbins, he's one of my favorite players in the league. He's so explosive. Gus Edwards, he's a freaking truck who's almost impossible to bring down, especially when he's charging up the middle of the line. But both of those guys, they're still finding their way back from injury. Both of these guys, they're still on snap counts by the end of last season. And, the Ravens, I feel like they never have fully trusted to give Dobbins a full workload ever since they drafted him. I don't know what the hesitation was before. I get it now a little bit. Like I just said, he was hurt, and they're trying to manage his reps, keep him healthy. But both of those guys, they're free agents next year, and the only back that we have on signed through 2024 and beyond is Justice Hill, who has an expiring contract in 2025. So we need more depth, and I think Miller is a very good pick because he covers all the bases. He's around 6 foot, 215. He's big, but he's so fast. He's explosive. He's agile. He basically carried the TCU Horned Frogs on his back all the way to the national championship on offense. He's such an important, impactful player. And we've seen what happens when our top two running backs go down with injury. Our whole run game unravels. So I don't think it's that far fetched that the Ravens should use a mid-round pick, kind of a higher pick on a running back because, Todd Monken, Greg Roman, doesn't matter. The run game is going to be the identity of the Ravens offense. It has been for 25 years. It ain't changing now. So let's keep feeding that machine. Get Miller in there, see what he can do. He's still developing. He's still a young guy, but that's why I think sitting behind Dobbins and Edwards while he learns this game could be super beneficial to him. So, yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a luxury pick. Maybe we can wait a little bit longer, but I just think Miller's talent is just too good to pass up in the fourth round. And by the way, if this is sounding a lot like the mock draft that I had published today, that's because it is. I did this before we got on, and I was just like, oh, I like this guy. And I went through it, and I was like, oh, wow, this is this is my mock draft that I just did. I
You
guess
accidentally drafted the
I did.
same.
I pretty much did. I'm just like, God, okay, cool, whatever.
We're running with it. We're running with it.
Oh, that's fine. I have a few different picks coming up here, but like my first like three picks were the same. I didn't even realize it until I saw it. Like, dang it. But they were just too good to pass up. I can't
Hey,
help
that
that.
is fine, my man. That is completely a-okay.
Don't worry, it changes after this pick, but yeah, Miller is my pick in the fourth round. I would.
So,
I know one of your boys would hate to have a running back be drafted for some reason, but I like this pick. We need running backs.
hey, I'm not gonna hate it. I'm not gonna lie because I took one too, not at 126, the one of the picks that I got for one of our earlier picks,
Good. I'm
but
glad you're in the same
for
boat with me.
126, or I'm gonna go back to back here since I have an extra pick and obviously our normal 157. So for 126, I took someone from a school that is a rival in this household, a defensive player from that team up north, aka University of Michigan, and that would be edge rusher Mike Morris. Add another piece of the edge rushing group from that dominant college football playoff team that Mikey Mack had ran. Add another or bring in another young piece that we can throw in the rotation.
I love it.
Now, what
I
would you
love it.
think about that?
I would absolutely love it. In my mock, I had them taking Mike Morris, and like I love it. He fits the Ravens profile to a T. He's a big guy. Ravens love big edge defenders. And where does he play? Did you say? Oh yeah, Michigan. That has been the Ravens pipeline the last few years. Michigan and Oklahoma. I feel like it's just it's a connection that just can't be overlooked. I think Morris, he fits the bill of exactly what the Ravens want. He fits the bill of exactly what the Ravens need. So if the Ravens were to take Morris here, I would jump for joy. I would love to see him in Baltimore. Like in this day and age, you need not just one or two good pass rushers. You need a whole platoon of them. You need to be able to continuously deploy good pass rush. And so it's something I'm shocked whenever teams don't really have needs that they use on like a safety or something, a high draft pick on a safety, when I feel like you just need to continuously invest in pass rush or what have you, because you're never going to be mad at too many good pass rushers,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a position in need. We talked about this earlier. Ravens don't have a whole lot at edge right now because they don't really know what they have with Ojabo and Owe just quite yet. Maybe they blossom into a fearsome pass rush duo, which I'm hoping for, but it can't hurt to put in a little bit more talent at that position. So I love it. I love it.
And then having or to add on to that, with we saw what happened after they brought in JPP last year, because Justin Houston was obviously playing a little bit hurt, but still on a snap count. And then Ojabo kind of had a little bit of a sophomore slump, which we hope we'll see him recover from in year
Yep.
three. Ojabo, we got a flash of what kind of potential he had there at the end of the season, especially in that last game and that playoff game. But now we'll have a full season ahead of us to be prepared with that. But we just need more edge rushers.
Yeah, I
And
mean, one of the big things about Owe coming out was he was one of the most raw prospects to be drafted in the first round in years. So, I mean, no one expected him to have the rookie year that he did. And I think if everyone would have said back when we drafted him, like he had the year, like he had a sophomore year that he had, I don't think anyone would have been surprised. So he's a raw prospect. He's coming along. So I just want to say that a lot of Ravens fans have already given up on Owe. I'm not one of them. I love his potential. I think this year is going to be a huge year for him. So fingers crossed that he can really step up.
Lost connection for a second.
Yep. Had me worried. It's like, okay, he's back. He's back.
No, sorry about that, folks. I had a little bit of a disconnect there. Switching between my 2G and 5G on my internet. But anyways, yeah, you're incredibly right. So at my next pick at 157, I took Tulane running back TJ Spears because obviously you had mentioned that the Ravens need running back depth because of the fact that both Edwards and Dobbins are free agents after this year. So to help lighten the load, bring in this guy. We saw what Tulane did with a such dominant year this year, and part of that was their running attack. This guy would fit the Ravens mold. He would fit Todd Monken's adaptability and just do well as a depth piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's nothing you can say about Spears that I didn't just say about Miller. Like it all fits. It all makes sense. So again, just the running game is so important to the Ravens, and on top right now are two running backs that are good, but their health is a little, it's a little dicey. It's the truth. Whether you like to admit it or not. So I think just getting a young running back who's explosive like Miller, who's explosive like Spears, can really help. Recharge that running game. Um, I think that'd be huge, and I think fifth round that'd be a good spot for a running back. Kind of shocked that we didn't even keep Tyler Beatty from last year. I was really excited when we drafted him. So I'd hate to do this whole song and dance again, where it's like, oh, if we draft like a 6th round running back, he's gonna stick on and he's gonna light the world on fire. But I'm really hoping this year we can draft a true difference maker at running back to sit behind Dobbins and Edwards. So
Yeah,
fingers crossed. It's a good draft for that though. Like it's a good draft for mid round running backs. Honestly,
it absolutely is. Last year we just kind of fell off because J.K. and Edwards had both come back. They brought in Davis and Drake as insurance policies as well because they weren't sure about how their late round picks were going to turn out.
mm-hmm.
And some of these guys are already proven vets.
Exactly.
And now this time around, I think they're more prepared to take the unproven rookies. Now, I heard that you had in the previous mention that at 157 you took Mike Morris, right?
In my mock draft, I think I took Morris. I think I took Morris at 199. Like he fell in that draft, and I immediately skipped out. For this draft, though, I told you I had a different pick, and I went with Chandler Zavala, the offensive guard out of North Carolina State. I've been preaching Zavala for a long time, for the last couple months at least. Like this dude, he's 6'4", 325. He is big, he is strong, but like he's so nimble, he's athletic, and just again, I think offensive guard, in the interior, I think it's kind of a little bit of a need, more than people realize. Ben Powers, like we just talked about, just cashed out in Denver. Ben Cleveland hasn't quite developed into that monster road grader that we all were hoping he would be when we took him in the 3rd round a couple of years ago. I mean, beyond that, we don't really have a whole lot. We like Patrick McCarry, jumping around right there, being able to fill those slots. But I think grabbing a guy like Zavala, kind of like I don't think he lasts till the 5th round, mind you. I think he's so talented. I think he goes closer to like the top of the 4th round. But if he's there in the 5th, I think the Ravens should think about taking him. Gives them a little extra insurance, along the offensive line, because I think we all know what happens when the offensive line is wrecked by injuries. Let's get a big, beefy, strong ass dude in there who can push the pile, who's basically a dancing bear. I mean, the guy is just so nimble on his feet, it doesn't make any sense. But I think he could immediately push Ben Cleveland for the starting spot. And even if he takes time to develop, I'm pretty sure Kevin Zeitler's contract is coming up at the end of next season. So maybe we can groom him to be his heir or something, So I think there's a lot more question marks on the interior of the offensive line than most people realize. So I think investing in that spot, giving a little bit more depth at the very least, I think it's imperative. In my mock draft that I just posted, I said we should take Utah Braden Daniels, he is not Chandler Zavala. He's not as big and as strong, but he's more like a Patrick McCarry kind of guy. He has positional versatility, tackle, center, guard. Doesn't matter what you need him to play. He'll play it. If he was available in this draft, I would have taken him above Zavala because he just offers so much flexibility. And when you have a top flight tackle like Ronnie Stanley, whose health is always seemingly up in the air, maybe it doesn't hurt to have that depth behind him. So whoever you want to plug in here, I think grabbing kind of a mid to late round flyer and an offensive lineman, I think it should be discussed for the Ravens because the offensive line I think is creeping toward a bit of a area of need for the Ravens. Maybe not on the surface, but just below it, it's definitely getting there.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly on that because with a damaged offensive line or an offensive line that isn't developed all the way, we have seen firsthand what that kind of O-line shuffle can look like and what it can cause for our running backs, what it can cause for our quarterback. And we just don't want to deal with that anymore. So
yeah, no.
I agree
the
with
most miserable season of my life. Oh my God.
Exactly. And I agree with your pick. The guy is an absolute powerhouse. But so is the guy that I picked at 178 with a trade package. I also took interior offensive lineman Jarrett Patterson out of Notre Dame. This guy is also a skilled technician and also repping the state of Indiana because, both of us.
Hoosiers represent, baby.
Exactly. For the longest time, Notre Dame has been O-line U, and you can't tell me I'm wrong. And having another Fighting Irish on this offensive line, whether it be, plug and play starter or rotational piece to try to free up some of the development, would be awesome. I would love to see him next to Ronnie Stanley or being groomed to be Kevin Zeitler's replacement. This is also another guy who is really well with his footwork, can really utilize his hand placement, and just push people around. Give him some time to develop with Kevin Zeitler, with Ronnie Stanley, all these different guys, and I believe he will be a sure win to fill or be a starter within year 2 or 3.
Yeah. I mean, you just said it best. He's an offensive lineman from Notre Dame. Like just that right there, it's like sign me up. That's awesome. I've noticed like even these players from Notre Dame who are offensive linemen who go undrafted, they still go on to the NFL and be contributors at some point in their career. Like they know how to coach offensive linemen, and to be great players. You got Ronnie Stanley who's right there. You got Quentin Nelson. You have just a plethora of just Notre Dame players who are just tremendous offensive linemen. Yes, I do think Patterson can be a terrific interior lineman. He's a 4-year starter. He played center. He played guard, and that's what I love about him. He was not just strictly a center. He can play a couple different spots. When it comes to backup offensive linemen, I love versatility when you can jump between those spots. So let's say like, Tyler Linderbaum, knock on wood that this doesn't happen, but he goes down with injury, and, something happens to Patrick McCarry. Like I know a lot of teams don't, that they're screwed, but if we can draft Patterson to be a backup guard, but we need him in an emergency, to play center for a game or two, he can offer that versatility. He can offer that to the Ravens. So I love a guy who can, while we're sitting him to develop behind a guy like Kevin Zeitler, he can step in another spot in an emergency situation. So yeah, I like Patterson in this spot. I do. Notre Dame offensive lineman, it automatically gets a thumbs up for me.
And before we go into our 199 picks, I also have a 190 that was part of a trade package. Because I told you before we
You
even
did.
started the show,
You
I
did.
got
You did.
draft capital for us, man.
Which
And
is
this
what I
was
hope happens, this weekend. I hope this happens. I'm
now
not
this
going to be
one
mad
is
if we
going to
trade
be
down.
now this pick here is going to be a little controversial because you're not going to expect it. The viewers aren't going to expect it. Our guys at ATB, they're not going to expect it. But I'm taking quarterback out of Purdue, Aiden O'Connell.
I thought you were going to say Stetson Bennett for a second. I was just
No,
going to just like leave. I'm like, nah, I'm done. I can't do this. I cannot
no.
do this.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Go back and rewatch the Michigan Purdue Big Ten championship game. Aiden played phenomenal against a high caliber defense. And you can't tell me I'm wrong.
I can't. I can't. Like he's one of those guys. He's not gonna wow you with his arm strength. He's not gonna wow you with his athleticism. He's just one of those guys that just plays quarterback, like, and he does it well. I'm an IU fan, so naturally I got to keep tabs on Purdue and see what they're doing, and I'm hoping they choke. But then I watch Aiden O'Connell. I'm just like, he's pretty good. He ain't that bad. So I mean, I think it's a good spot for him. I think, a lot of Ravens fans bulk at drafting a quarterback this year at some point. It's fine. That's fair. But I think getting a young backup who we can develop into, hopefully something a little bit more down the road, I don't think there's any problem with that. Take a swing at the quarterback, especially late in the draft. Some draft analyst, I forget who, and it's bugging the crap out of me, said every single year you should use a 6th or 7th round draft pick on a quarterback because if you don't hit, who cares? You just wasted a 6th or 7th round draft pick. What's the matter? But if you do hit, you have either a quarterback of the future or someone you can get a boatload of picks for. So, like, why not take these swings? Like, why not take these swings? Especially like someone like O'Connell, who has shown that he has, some of these tools to be, at the very least, a stout backup in the NFL.
Exactly. And that's just why I took him because, yes, we have Brown in the room. Who's to say they don't like what they're seeing this year and just decide, hey, this O'Connell kid is just doing his job and getting it done in a better manner, kind of like Trace McSorley did.
Yeah, exactly.
That
So
he O'Connell kind of reminds me of Trace McSorley. He wasn't too flashy. Obviously, it was a different story at Penn State, but even at Purdue, I feel like he was just there. He was doing his job. He did it to the best of his ability, and he won games. Granted,
yeah,
I was sitting there watching the Big Ten championship game and hoping that he was going to beat Michigan, but that didn't happen. But he played well. He played well the entire season, and I think he would fit well in this offense that they're trying to put in and be a solid third option in case whether Huntley or Lamar doesn't come back, whether he does come back and goes down, Huntley goes down, and we just need a third guy in. He could be our Brock Purdy.
yeah, and I don't like Brock Purdy should give people some hope that these late round picks can step up and be contributors. Maybe it's false hope, I don't know, but why not take a swing at this point in the draft? Why not? I know a lot of Ravens fans are saying we have too many holes to be drafting a quarterback late in the draft. It's like, is a 6th round pick, 7th round pick, what have you, really gonna step in and really alter the franchise? Maybe, but I'm banking on no. So might as well take a swing at a quarterback.
It could be
Like I said,
worse.
it could be worse. Like I
It could
said,
be Ben Mason.
jeez, my God.
I
I
like Ben
was
Mason, but I had to bring it up.
I was so adamant. I was fighting with people who were mad at that pick. I was like, it's a fifth round pick. It's not going to like bring our franchise down. But I feel like ever since we made that pick, our franchise has just kind of been going downhill ever since, which is, I'm sure there's no correlation, but man, it feels like there is. Oh my God.
Now, before or once we get into this 199, obviously I'm going to make mine in like we've been doing with our normal picks, going back and forth. I took another running back because we need the depth. We're going to probably end this one. I could probably see pulling a Tyler Beatty. I picked Mohamed Ibrahim from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Solid guy, knows how to, you know, go no, or go whether whatever way you need him to go. But guy is going to probably be just a go big or go home. So I expect him to be on the cutting block or at least the practice squad. But hey, he may outdo Spears, or hell, even with he may end up outdoing Justice Hill, considering he just re-signed.
Yeah, Mo Ibrahim, I am a huge fan of personally because I just feel so bad for him. I remember watching him at Minnesota and just thinking like, wow, this he's really good. And then he got all those injuries and everything, and it's so sad. It's just so sad. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a team, take him like in the fifth round. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't get drafted. But I just think there's so much talent there that he's worth a late round flyer on. I think he's one of those guys who's never going to be a Pro Bowl running back or anything like that, but he's going to be a very solid rotational piece for you. Like I said, he has great vision. He has great balance. He doesn't fumble a whole lot, but he's not going to be that explosive running back for you. He's not going to win any long speed races for you, but he's just going to be a stout, solid piece for you when he's in the game. You're good for 2 or 3 yards, and you're not going to lose the ball. Which some running backs make a living off that, and that's okay. That could be Ibrahim. I loved him at Minnesota. I want him to succeed so bad, just because I feel so bad for him, and with concerns like due to his injuries and everything. So if the Ravens were to take him, I wouldn't be mad. I'd be like, okay, that brings a little bit of a tear in my eye. I'm all for I've always said feed into your strength. When a team has a great offensive line, keep feeding to that strength, keep that strength. I feel like the Ravens haven't been doing that with running backs the last few years, and now it's catching up to them. So using a couple draft picks on running backs, yeah, why the hell not? Let's do it. Let's make this strength a strength again, and not have to worry about all these injuries or what have you. So if Ibrahim were to be our only running back that we took, I'd have a problem with it. But since you took Spears earlier, hey, this is a why the hell not? Let's take a flyer on Ibrahim. He's productive in college. Let's see if he can be productive at the next level.
And with your pick at 199, let's hear it.
I took Central Michigan edge Thomas Incum. Someone, summed Incum up in one word, and that was relentless. And like I watched him, like, yeah, that's like the perfect word for him. He had like 11 and a half sacks last year and like 19 tackles for a loss or something, in his first year as a starter. He only started like 2 games prior to that, for Central Michigan, but then he just exploded almost out of nowhere. I think if he had that production for a couple of years in a row, he'd be going much higher. He'd probably be a day 2 pick. But since he never really had that production before, he's a little green. I think he's going to drop down to like a late day 3 pick. But like you look at his size, he's 6'4", around 260. Probably it's a little smaller than the Ravens like their edges, but who cares? He just has this scary motor to get after quarterbacks. And, we've been talking about it all night. Let's get a little more depth at edge. Right now we don't have a whole lot there. So, yeah, why not take a late round flyer on a guy like Income who may not pan out because, he's green. He needs a little seasoning. But if he does and he can be that third guy, that third rotational guy who could just be this fearsome pass rusher, I think he would be an absolute steal at 199. So, I think you're going to see a lot of this in this draft. It's going to be a lot of, you know, a lot of flyers, especially like late in this draft, where you're just going to see teams just kind of going for it. Like why not take a fifth round, spend a fifth round pick on this player because sure he may not have the production in college, but he has a lot of upside or what have you. So that's why I'm so excited for this draft is because it's so unpredictable. These teams could go any which way, the Ravens included, and I'm just so excited to see a lot of these guys who might not usually get drafted compared to other drafts, but this draft is just it's all over the place. No one really knows how this is going to go. So why not take a couple of flyers? So I'm so excited for this draft. So pumped.
You're exactly right, my good sir. And as far as your last pick and that comment, relentless, I would like to agree 100%. Now, with our two mocks, let's go through them one time real quick and then give each other our grades. But then after we're done with giving us our grades, I want to take a moment and go through a third mock draft live from neither one of us. Someone
Let's
that
do it.
has done her first mock draft ever. And we're actually both going to be very impressed. So, but go ahead, sir. Read off your 5 picks real quick, and then I'd like to give you my grade. And then once we get through that, you'll give me my grade.
Sounds good. All right, 22 took Maryland corner Deontay Banks. At 86, I took Wake Forest wide receiver A.T. Perry. At 124, I took TCU running back Kendre Miller. At 157, I took North Carolina State offensive guard Chandler Zavala. And at 199, I took Central Michigan edge rusher Thomas Nku. Let's have it.
Now for that, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I like all the picks, but I'm going to have to give it a minimum B plus, top A minus,
I'll
because
take that.
obviously with the whole running back room ordeal, a lot of people, including myself, would be like, unless we have more draft capital, I don't think we'll be necessarily investing in that. I think we'll be looking to bring some of these guys back, such as Drake, try to bring back Davis in because I know they had cut him in the midst of the season, but he still has the Ravens, him and the Ravens uni as his profile photo on Twitter. So I think we'll try to bring it, unless they get more draft capital, they'll be bringing them back. So
Which I'm
that
hoping
minimum
for.
B plus, maximum A minus. Now, sir, be honest with me once I get through here. At 24, quarterback out of Penn State, Joey Porter Jr. Wide receiver out of Cincinnati at 95, Tyler Scott. 124, Moro Ojomo, defensive tackle out of Texas. 126, Mike Morris, edge rusher out of Michigan. 157, TJ Spears, running back out of Tulane. 178, offensive lineman, interior, Jarrett Patterson, Notre Dame. 190, quarterback out of Purdue, Aiden O'Connell. And 199, Mohammed Ibrahim, running back out of Minnesota. Let's just hit me with it, my good sir.
Well, I think moving back automatically bumps the grade up. Like I said, if you move back a couple spots, acquire more draft capital, and you're still walking away with Joey Porter, that's like an automatic A in my opinion. Like I love Joey Porter so much. So I love that move. I love Tyler Scott, where you got him again, moving back a couple spots and getting Tyler Scott. I feel like he's almost become like this forgotten receiver who shouldn't be forgotten. Yeah, he's undersized, but man, he's so electrifying. And I like, I think the meat and the potatoes of this draft is going to be the mid rounds, like I said. So, addressing the trenches on both sides of the ball, I love it. I think the Ravens really need to do that. And the only thing that, like, prevents me from giving this like a I give it an A minus. By the way, I think the last two picks, those Flyers, I think it just drops it down just a little bit for me. You know, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe like O'Connell and Ibram like are just freaking key contributors for the Ravens. But like if it's sixth and seventh round, why the heck not? But I think this is at minimum A minus. Screw it. I'm going to give you an A. I love that Joey Porter moving down. I love that pick so much. I think, like I said, they could draft punchers the rest of the way through. If they were to move down and still get Joey Porter, man, I wouldn't care who they drafted the rest of the night. Oh my gosh.
I appreciate that. I really do. Now that we got our grades out of the way, I convinced my wonderful wife, Mrs. Haley Myers, to do her first ever mock draft. And I am hoping that by the end of the night, we'll be able to have posted her mock draft, and you can get your wife, Mrs. Hunter, to do the same so we can compare side by side and see which one is better. But she also did a 5-round pick. I kind of guided her through it with team needs and said she can literally just pick based off school, a mix of school and team needs. So this is the one she was adamant about. At 22, she took offensive lineman out of TCU, Steve Avila, or Villa, however you pronounce it. At 86, she took offensive tackle out of Indiana, Luke Haggard. At 124, she took cornerback out of Ohio State, Cam Brown. At 157, defensive tackle, Ohio State, Taron Vincent. And at 199, wide receiver out of Penn State, Mitchell Tinsley.
I see the Big Ten theme going on.
She did. She honestly did. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. But I was proud of her, and I was honestly impressed. She was more impressed at herself, but I think she did really well for this being her first ever mock draft.
What's funny is I was talking to someone not that long ago, and I was like, if the Ravens were to trade back and take Steve Avila, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad. I think he's a damn good football player. So, no, Haley did a phenomenal job. I think she should take your spot in this podcast, honestly. Boo! Burn! I love the Big Ten theme she's got going on. So that's great. I love it. I love it so much. She did a phenomenal job.
And I told her, I straight up when I read the whole entire thing, I was like, a lot of people would argue about especially about the Luke Haggard being that high at 86, but I don't hate it. Like I said, I'm proud. I am very impressed. Considering, yes, I don't think we'll take an offensive guard in the first round. Considering we just took a center last year. But, you never know.
You never know.
Having Steve Avila as pick number 22 would be awesome, considering we would probably plug him in right away at the left guard position.
Oh, yeah. He's an instant starter. Instant starter.
He would easily replace or be the right side version of Marshall Yanda if we would have to go that route.
Oh, I miss Yanda so much.
Luke Haggard obviously would be more of a rotational piece in case, Morgan Moses went down, or even, hell, Ronnie Stanley went down. I watched an old 2021 film on the IU offensive line, and I didn't it was against Penn State, I believe. Luke Haggard just needed a little more flexibility with his footwork and a little bit more with his hand placement. I feel like he went a little too wide with his hand placement. Move him in a little bit more, and then you can go. And I'm going to invite someone real quick to this stream that requested be added into it. We'll see him here momentarily. And going into the Cam Brown from Ohio State, he did really well this entire year. I'm not even going to lie. So him being at 124 for us, that would be awesome.
What's funny is like all these picks, like in a way, they make sense. Like I know this is her first mock draft and everything, but like they make sense. Like I said all last year, is like we need to draft a couple offensive tackles. Just for a starter at right side, and just in case Ronnie Stanley goes down on the left side. So she's kind of living out my dream. I love beefing up the trenches.
And here is our visitor and friend, Shane Kubis. What's going on, Shane?
Hey, what's going on?
What's up, buddy?
So I had to jump on real fast because you guys are doing mocks for the Ravens, obviously.
So the Steelers fan had to chime in on this, huh?
Yeah, so I could tell you why you're wrong about what you're doing. No, I'm just kidding. So mind the lighting here. Let me get out of the light a little bit here. But no, I watched most of the show while I was making food, and I was like, you know what? You took Joey Porter Jr., one of them, and I had to talk about that, obviously.
That was me.
Yeah, I know. I know it was you, Brandon. You would be the one to do it. No, but no, so with the whole thing with Joey, right, is I just don't think he's going to be there at 22 or 24 when you move back. Not only because I think the Steelers will take him, but like I just think other teams will too, like ahead of them if the Ravens wanted to take him. So that's the first thing. But other than that, like the draft in general, like you guys hit positions of need. I do wonder if a lot of the guys that you took will be there when you take them. Like when you took them. Obviously, we don't know enough about this draft, especially like there's guys who probably should be taken much higher that won't be, and there's guys who you think will be taken higher but they won't be. This is very unpredictable. But I just went through one with the Steelers show I do for Fanside is still Curtain that I do the podcast for, and we talked about it, like we just don't know with this draft. It's so unpredictable. The Ravens, you guys do love your draft picks, so I think it's very likely, like you said, Thomas, I know, that they probably move back at least once. I think they should in 22. I just don't see a corner worth 22nd pick being there, and I think that's your top need at this point. Could you take a receiver? Maybe. There's only a couple of guys I think are first round, like even remotely first round talents, and a lot of them are really second rounders who are going to be pushed up. Like you look at Isaiah Flowers, which I love him. He's my number one receiver outside of JSN just because he's the most consistent. But I don't know if he's the type of receiver you guys really need as a first round pick. I think he's better than Hollywood Brown as an all around receiver, but it's still in that same mold in terms of size and things like that. So I think if you could move back into like the mid 30s somewhere and take like maybe a Cam Smith or somebody like that, better value there. I think you could get a guy like that. That would make a lot of sense. Just get some more of those day, 2 and 3 picks that you guys just don't have right now. So
yeah, I think that would be my ideal scenario. If we can move back to like those mid 30, 35, 36 and still snag a guy like Cam Smith, I would absolutely love that. I love Cam Smith. I know there's been some recent talk that, some don't value him as high and he's going to be like 3rd, 4th round pick. I don't see it. I love Cam Smith. So if we can move back, get a couple extra picks, that would be ideal. I would love that so much. I was going to ask, do you have a favorite for the Steelers right now? Because I do some mock drafts. The Steelers, I feel like, could go a couple different ways. Obviously, the Joey Porter one it's a fun one, but do you have like a certain offensive lineman in mind, or what you got? What you got? I'm trying to size up our rivals here.
I think in terms of so I'll give you who I would like them to select if I was doing it at 17, and then I'll tell you who I think they will. We'll do that. I think Porter Jr. is going to be the pick in the actual draft. I think he'll fall far enough where either they make a couple jumps up to grab him, or he falls to 17 entirely because the other corners are just valued higher by teams, right? Because the thing with Porter is, as good as he is at what he does, he doesn't have as diverse of a skill set as a Deontay Banks or even to Christian Gonzalez, or especially Devin Witherspoon, who I think can play literally almost every D-back position, literally. So I think that those guys would be valued a little bit higher, even though maybe at what Joey Porter does with that press man style, probably the best day one in the draft at just doing that. The questions with him are the ball skills. Can he get better zone instincts, which is stuff you can get better at that, but he's not as good as those other guys out the box. So I think he'll be there at 17. I think he'll ultimately be the pick because I think the tackle run is going to happen right before the Steelers pick. And there's been already news about like, oh, they're trying to trade up with the Falcons or the Bears. And I could see them doing that for Paris Johnson, especially. I think that's who they'd be targeting if they do that. But it's going to be a big move up. And I think they like the idea of having all the day two picks we have right now. So if they don't do that, I think 17 would be Joey Porter Jr. I would love to see them take Roderick Jones. I think that he could be there if the tackle run doesn't happen. At least not the full tackle run. Because I think Darnell Wright is going to be drafted ahead of him just based on the fact that he's ready to play right the second and be a blindside protector. Well, not a blindside, a right tackle protector for a team. If he falls all the way to 17, you have to run the card in. Because one, we haven't drafted believe it or not, we have not drafted an offensive tackle in the first round during my lifetime. So at this point, you have to do it. You brought in a rookie quarterback last year who showed flash at the end of the year. You have to protect him, allow him to be able to throw the ball more consistently down the field, something we haven't done for multiple years, ever since Ben's arm kind of fell off, and then we had Kenny last year. So if you're going to take somebody, I'd love it to be Broderick Jones, but I expect it to be Porter at this point.
That's fair. I feel like the Steelers are kind of going the way of the Giants for the last couple of years, spending a first-round pick on a running back and then a quarterback. And I think it's now time to invest, or protect your investments.
Ideally. Yeah, we beefed up the interior so much in free agency, because they brought a ton of interior offensive linemen, and they could still take a guy on day two that, especially like a center, like whether it's John Michael Schmitz or Joe Tippmann or Luke Whipple, one of those guys, to compete with Mason Cole and hopefully replace him down the line. But the interior is so strong that if you're going to take a lineman, it has to be, especially early, like one of their first two picks. I really think it's got to be one of those tackles. And if not 17, Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma might be there 32. Daewon Jones, who I've soured on a little bit, even though I really like his floor, is just that big body, right tackle that can move people. One of those guys has to end up a Steeler, though, or I don't think it's going to be a very good draft for them personally. So.
Yeah, I've been loving Broderick Jones to them. It's been one of my favorite mocks to the Steelers. So I think I personally have been mocking Porter to the Commanders a lot. So
yeah,
he goes just before the Steelers pick.
Yeah, the problem with the Commanders fit, and I understand because I was doing that at one point too, but I just don't. There's a reason why William Jackson didn't work out with them. And it's because he is a pure press man, get up in people's faces, stick to receivers' hips. That's what he does. And they just don't ask their corners to really do that. I think Porter could survive in their scheme for sure, just because he's more talented. But Deonte Banks is the guy that I think they should take. If they're going to take a corner in round one, he played literally every coverage you could imagine at Maryland last year and did it pretty well at all across the board. His athletic traits, all that's great. I think he'd be a good fit almost anywhere. And that's kind of the point, as I think Washington has to stay away from some of those press man corners unless they're going to change their scheme up, which they haven't the past few years. So
yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of if it's not a tackle run in the mid-teens, it's going to be a cornerback run, and that would be devastating for the Ravens.
That'd be bad for both of us because I'd love to get one of the guys in the second round, maybe a Tyreek Stevenson, who I think is a day one starter in a press man scheme, or you could get a Cam Smith like I talked about. Darius Rush a little bit down the board, I think is really talented too. This corner class is so deep that I don't want it to be a pick at 17 because I think you can get a starting caliber guy on day two. But it really comes down, is there a tackle runner or a corner runner, or even a little bit of both? That's the worst case scenario is your top three guys gone at both spots. Then you're okay, well, we can trade down. We're just going to take an edge, because I think edge is going to be the best player on the board at the time, which not that the Steelers don't need it because one guy gets hurt and we're screwed again. We can't have Malik Reed happen again, whatever the hell that was with last year. But it's really tough to determine because especially in your middle of the draft, most of the true first-round guys in this class are going to probably be gone at 17. They just are. That's just kind of how this class is. So it's going to be a tough spot for us and, honestly, you guys too. So
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And also, this is a little off topic, but I'm going off in our comments. I sent a friend of the show, Ray Wiley, a link to come in and give his comments related to the draft. And he still thinks that the Ravens changed the script this year with the DeAndre Hopkins trade, and he's sticking his guns to it. Come on the show, my friend. Come join us and give us your thoughts. We would love to hear your thoughts. Now, as far as all of Shane's top or points here, I agree wholeheartedly percent. This is just such a depth or deep cornerback class that it can go anywhere with it. Same with tackle, and
Yeah.
it can go one way or it can go another.
I think the interesting thing too, you guys talked about running back being a need, and I think it is because Dobbins was great when he played last year, but that's been the book on him is can he stay healthy for even 14 games, 15 games, whatever it is. And sure, like they've had a bunch of backs in there that have been able to get it done, but now that they're moving away from that really run heavy scheme in terms of like the diversity of runs, I don't think you're going to see as much of the read option stuff. Obviously, I don't think you're going to see as much of the design quarterback stuff, most likely, regardless of whether Lamar comes back or not. They need to have a better traditional run game so that way they don't have to rely on as much of the gimmicks that they've done. And it's worked, but Lamar's been injured multiple times. And I think that even though it hasn't been necessarily with him running, like you don't want to put him in more danger than you have to. Now, if you want to let him scramble, you still need to use his legs as much as you can. Like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, you can't let the guy that has 4.3 speed not run the ball. Like that's dumb.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, getting a more traditional run game going and having a guy that's a little bit more stable or just adding to that position. Like I would really like to see, I shouldn't say like to see because this won't be good for me. Israel Abanikanda out of Pittsburgh, ironically, he would be that lightning in the bottle type guy that like you can give him 5 or 6 carries to start off his career and he might pop off one of those every week. Like you get him in open space, there isn't anybody catching him. That's especially a linebacker safety. Like corners are going to have to be running from the weak side to try to keep him from scoring on a lot of plays. So that would be the type of guy. Like Tyjae Spears, I think you drafted, Brandon, in yours, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's a 3rd-round pick, personally. I think that's where he'll go. But, so it's probably a little early for you guys to take one, especially because you don't have a lot of picks. But maybe if you trade down and you get some extra picks, that could be a good guy, too.
Just did in this draft.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you might have to take him a little bit earlier, but still. And then another guy to wish out for, like for you guys especially, I think you guys would like him a lot. Dwayne McBride. He's such an interesting guy because he doesn't have the home run speed, but nobody ever seems to catch him because he does this weird thing, and I talked about it on the Steelers show that I do. We were talking about different prospects. He runs. If you guys have played Madden any time in the past 10 years, you know how you can kind of cheat angles and like run the sideline a little bit and make safety like miss you the whole entirely. He does that, but in real life, like literally, like that's how he runs. It's weird. I have no idea how it works, but it makes it work. And I think any of those like mid-round guys would be a really good fit for you guys. I think for sure.
See, here's the thing: we do have one counter argument to that statement there with the gimmicky runs and traditional pass runs here. Friend of the show, Ray, again. The more we've moved away from those gimmicky runs and had a traditional pass run scheme, the higher Lamar injuries became. So that statement doesn't certainly stick or follow the data trends. If you don't already know, our friend Ray here is very statistically proven. He looks at stats like no other. We have tried to convince him to come to ATB and be our Ravens stat guy. How many times have we asked him to come aboard, TD?
At least 10 times a show, at least.
At least. Because this guy follows the stats and trends like no other. But I would like to agree with you. I agree with both of you guys in regards to that. Because statistically, he is correct. In actual, when you actually go and watch the games, it looks like these gimmicky or these traditional things is what Lamar wants to do.
I think it's a push and pull, right? Because, and obviously, like when I was talking about Lamar, like he hasn't really been injured from running anyway. Like I'm not worried so much about that. But at some point, though, because you're probably going to, you hope, invest a lot of money into him, doing it unnecessarily. I think like if you don't need to rely on him doing it as much, you want to move towards that just for the sake of protecting his career, right? And you hope that he'll be able to keep that as part of his game for multiple years still before you really have to truly rein it in. But he's been asking for it. I think a lot of NFL fans want to see it. Like I want to see him in more traditional offense, not because I don't think that he can't do it, obviously, because I think he can. But if the Ravens want to actually be able to build upon what they've done with him, they have to allow him to be the passer that he's been able to be when they ask him to, right? Because there's been moments, like you look at that Colts game a couple years ago, where it was just boom, like one after another, dart, every play. It's like that's the type of stuff that he needs to be allowed to do more, because if you don't allow him to do it consistently, once you get in the playoffs and he has to do it, he doesn't have the reps doing it legitimately. That's for a player that's played as long as he has. He doesn't have those 2-minute drill, we're passing every play. He doesn't have those reps really, and it's worked to get you guys deep into the season. But once you get into the playoffs, things change. Like, you can't ask him to just put up 40 points with the run game against teams that are in the playoffs. And because he doesn't have those reps, it's also hard to ask him to throw you into a win. Like, it's just hard to ask him to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I mean, but with the change in pace with the offensive coordinator, obviously we see that Todd Monken, especially in the University of Georgia, he's more of a balanced and kind of traditional guy with more gimmicky actual routes. Like, the formations are more traditional, but we see more creativity come about it.
I'm very interested to see how it works out, because bring him in, and I really liked what he did with Georgia, because you look at what Stetson Bennett was able to do. He beat out multiple higher recruited players, not necessarily because he was more talented than them, even though I think he's more talented than people want to tell people that he is, because they want to just crap on him because he's 50 years old and he's whatever. But he's talented enough, especially as a college player, where definitely should be starting, maybe not at a big program, but he was able to do it because he was able to run the scheme that they wanted him to do and do it perfectly for the most part. If you can get Lamar in that system and allow him to have some of the easier plays that Bennett had at his disposal, and let him use his legs in the way that, because Bennett really ran a lot too for that team. He's very athletic. They used him in the run game. If you do it in the way that they did it, now it's going to be a little bit different, because anytime you move to the NFL, you're going to have to change things up and all that stuff. But if he can do similar stuff for them this year, Lamar's probably going to have his best passing season, at least if he's healthy, and one of his better, in terms of efficiency, I think, running seasons too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah, as much as I hate to say that, by the way. But it is, I mean, I still have my offense coordinator, so I literally can't say anything about anybody else's offensive coordinator. I literally can't open my mouth. Yeah. It's not,
I think
I feel bad for you guys. I just feel bad for you guys.
I feel bad for football, man. It's really a football thing. As much as I feel bad for myself, people don't need to watch this.
I don't like the Steelers, but it's just my God, I feel so bad for you guys.
The only time our passing offense was any good, literally, was whenever they just left Kenny alone, because they couldn't afford to not let him just do it, because there was 2 minutes left.
I feel like
the game against you guys, the passing
offense. I was going to say the Ravens Steelers game. That's when their passing offense came alive for us.
Right, it's just let Kenny do what he wants. He's a rookie, right? Your rookie shouldn't be able to run the offense better than your offense coordinator, right? That shouldn't be what happens, but it did. And I'm hoping they kind of just let him do more of his own things this year, just to prove that Canada's not the guy, and then we can get somebody else next year. But it is going to limit us, I think. And I think if there's a reason why the Steelers won't have a better record, even if they're a better team this year, it's going to be because the offense just cannot put up points consistently because of the play calling. That's what's going to cause it. So I'm already trying to be pessimistic, because I know it's going to.
The 2023 season around the flock, around the Berg reunion, is going to be incredible.
Yeah, I'll try to come on for you guys, especially because I've kind of taken the back seat on certain things, but I'm going to be sticking around in different capacities still. But yeah, I just wanted to jump on and talk to you. I do, I like the drafts you guys did. Just don't know if they'll be possible. I wanted to make a note on Mike Morris real quick though before I jump off. He's one of the weirdest players in this draft class to me, because he's not an edge. He's not. You look at him athletically, he just simply isn't one. He might have the least bend of any player in this class that plays edge, but he's a Ravens player. He is. That's exactly what and I think that he could work for you guys. I think how early you draft him is going to mean whether I like it or not. But where you took him, Thomas, I think is the range he should actually go, just because I literally don't know if he can play in the NFL. I just don't know if he can hold up in the interior, where he'd probably be better. I don't know if he can hold up at edge because of his athleticism. But if there's any team that can take a guy that's his profile and make him into a weird 8-sack-a-year guy, it's probably you guys. So I can't say anything.
Absolutely.
He reminds me so much of Zadarius Smith, when he came out of Kentucky.
In a similar way.
Guy, big guy. Maybe Smith was a little bit more athletic, a little more.
Yeah, for sure.
Bendy, but still, just same along that same profile.
I think if you just stand him up over a guard and just let him run through his face, you probably are okay.
Just have him
But
crash in.
yeah,
Just have him crash
but
through.
that's like you pretty much have to use him as a stunt player. Like I don't think he can just straight up win off the edge, which is I guess you don't need that from a guy that you're going to take in like the 5th round probably. But he could be an interesting piece for you guys for sure. But
I would love to see him in our defense. Just see what he can do.
Now, one last question that I have for you, Shane, before
Sure.
you actually officially left or
Sure.
let us go, or you go. What is going to be your official grades for both our mock drafts?
So if they happened, right? Again, I kind of preface this with the fact that I don't think that it would be possible for them to happen necessarily, but I could be wrong because we don't know. We don't know jack about this draft, frankly.
Exactly.
None of us really know a lot.
None of us.
I would say that Thomas's hit more of what I would expect the Ravens to do by a little bit, but again, that's not necessarily good or bad. It's just more, I think, kind of what they would probably be looking to do. So I probably just a B plus, like you kind of gave him, Brandon. Then yours, I'll give it a B. Mostly because I have to knock you down like at least some points for taking Joey Porter Jr. Even though that's actually a good thing technically, but I have to. I can't really not. I can't leave this feed without doing that. So I kind of have to.
So I get a B. TD gets what, an A?
B plus. B plus.
B plus. Okay. Now I don't know if you were actually listening to the one that my wife did.
Oh, F. Oh, total F. No. No, I'm kidding. No, hey, if she's never done it before, I can't claim anything on it.
Listen, this was her first mock draft,
Yeah, I
and
heard that.
When I told her, I was like, "Listen," she told me straight up, "I don't know what I am doing."
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%.
I told her, just if you want to just go off team needs, the position, and school.
Hey, Big Ten. I'm Wisconsin guy, so I can't say anything about Big Ten fan. Sure, 100%.
So I don't know if I'm going to go through it for you real quick again.
I think it was Steve Avila, right? Luke Haggard out of, I think it was
Indiana.
out of Indiana.
Cam Brown out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
Teron Vincent out of Ohio State, and Mitchell Tinsley out of Penn State.
Yeah, Mitchell Tinsley, actually, weirdly enough, if you want one of the probably easiest and what I think will be most accurate comps maybe in the entire draft, Mitchell Tinsley is Kendrick Bourne.
Ooh.
If you go look up their RAS score, they are literally the exact same person. Like, I think that they could, if you just couldn't see their face, you could pass them off as the same person. It's kind of funny. Like, it's weird.
Honestly, I would give her on this one, honestly, I would give her a B minus.
Well, I mean, you have to. Also.
I have to.
Like, so, I mean, I don't know if what that really means at the end of the day, but yeah, I mean, hey, for sure. I mean, I'm sure if I had my girlfriend try to do it, she'd just be like, "Who are these people?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Just do whatever you want to do." So, like, it's fine. But
pretty much.
Hey, I remember back in college, my wife, who, we weren't seeing each other back then. She doesn't know jack about football. She was in a fantasy football league with me, and she just drafted every guy that she thought was hot, and she ended up doing pretty damn well.
So this thing is with fantasy football, nobody knows anything. I hate to break it to all the people who like subscribe to like fantasy things and they do all this research. At the end of the day, your first 3 picks are going to get hurt, right? There's going to be a random tight end that's the 5th tight end that year that no one knows anything about, right? All the other tight ends will basically just be waiver wire pickups. You don't have to worry about your tight end spot. There's going to be some random 5th round running back that rushes for 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like, nobody knows anything, especially fantasy. Like, because we don't know. Because first of all, between injuries, players get drafted really low, they end up starting because I don't know, teams feel like it. It's honest, that's what it feels like sometimes. She probably had the best strategy of anyone there. Like, she's like, oh, that guy looks good. Maybe they'll throw him out there because he looks good. Like, that's literally probably the best thing she could do.
It worked.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, damn, okay, well, cool. Good for you, man. I was trying to I was grinding over here, and you're like, this guy is beautiful. I'm going to take him.
Yeah, I think she drafted like Brady Quinn or something was her QB.
Brady Quinn. He's had a rough go of it in the media.
Yeah, but like I said, her team overall did pretty well. So I was like, if it works, it works.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm gonna let you guys go. Let you guys finish up the show. Thanks for having me on real quick. But I'll try to join you guys a little bit during the season too. So
appreciate it, sir, and we'll talk to you later. All right, sir. So that about wraps it up for me. Since obviously he didn't give me an outright letter grade for hers, what would you give her letter grade?
A for effort.
A for effort.
A for effort. Okay, if I was looking at this, it wouldn't be my favorite mock draft.
No.
But I mean, she's hitting like important points. So like, screw it. So I like Steve Avila. I like him a lot. So
That's why I gave the total mock draft a B minus.
I'll be nice and say C minus. How's that?
That's fine.
And I'm gonna get mine to do one, and then we can laugh about it together.
Exactly, and we're gonna have a vote, a public vote to see which one is the better one. But one last comment read through before we actually sign off after almost 2 hours of going live, which this is,
Hasn't been
I'm
that
pretty
long.
sure, our
No.
longest show that
This
we've
is
ever
definitely the
done.
longest. We got a lot of
And it
catching
is
up to
still
do.
awesome. It's still awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
But
go for it.
come from Ray. First 3 picks are guaranteed to go wrong in my league. Join my league. I drafted Andrew Luck the year he got hurt. I drafted Brandon Marshall the year he lost his mind in Denver. Antonio Brown right before he went to Zerk. I drafted Michael Thomas after he breaks the record and then goes and punches teammates and doesn't even play. That is interesting. I forgot about that because I'm
Yeah.
in his. I'm pretty sure I've been in his leagues a handful of times, at least, unless it was a different league that we were in together when that happened.
Yeah, just like no one knows jack about fantasy. Like I've done better in leagues where I wing it than the leagues that I do research for. So I don't know.
Okay,
I don't
so
know
he
jack
didn't
about
invite
fantasy.
me to that one. But anyway, sir, are we going to try to have a draft reaction together next week?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I'll be back on next week. We're gonna grade these picks. We're gonna react and everything. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
All right, sir. Take it away with the usual wrap up like we used to do.
Well, you can find me on at TD Hunter 52, like it says right there on the screen. Obviously, you can catch my mock draft that I've been gushing about at Ravens underscore ATB. I'm going to be doing instant reactions, articles for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Assuming we make a pick on Thursday, we could trade back in the second. I don't know. It's gonna be a fun few days. But yeah, gonna be a lot more active on the socials because it's the draft. How can you not be excited for this? And of course, I'll be back next week. So we're going to talk about the draft, what we liked about it, what we hated about it, and everything like that. So I'm excited. I'm going to be very active these next few days. You will not be able to shut me up about the draft.
I will not be able to. As you all know, you can find me at BT Myers_ right there. That's going to be Instagram, TikTok, there on my Twitter feed. Now, for those of you who know, I've been trying to experiment with the around the flock short or extras. I did one successful one back when we signed Odell. I've done a few successful ones with free agency and last year's draft. So I'm looking to incorporate that more whenever we're not able to do a full show or just as instant reaction to signings and draft picks. As you all know, I've not necessarily fully retired, but I have pretty much stopped writing. Nick Price, aka Price Check 3, and my man TD Hunter over here are our leaders in the written content. I'm going to still do my best to keep you up with the digital content. But that's all I got for y'all. We'll see y'all next week with some of the best reactions to this draft class.